Hello everyone and welcome to the Darrow Talks podcast. Today we have got a Scot, the first Scot I've had on the Darrow Talks podcast, and we're going to hear about his story. It has been full of twists and turns, so please, without further ado, welcome Brian.
Thank you very much, Darrow.
Was that
it's
good?
Definitely Darrow, isn't it?
It's definitely Darrow. So before we start, I just want to do a few icebreaker questions.
Yes. No
so first question is, if you could have dinner with 3 celebrities who are dead or alive, they'll be alive for the dinner party.
That's good. Not just a little urn of ashes. Little urn's not a clue, by the way.
3 people, dead or alive, who would they be?
I'm going to go with, people always take this and then they pick people from history, don't they? Winston Churchill and all these. I just want to have some fun at my dinner party. So I'm going Sean Locke.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. He's number 1 on the list. Billy Connolly.
Oh my God.
2. So those 2 are going to keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
And number 3, I was stuck between Barry Humphries and Jesus. Now, I'm not sure this could be controversial. I'm not sure if Jesus might not turn up. If he does, he can bring the fish and the bread. But I'm going with Barry Humphries.
I wonder if anybody's been stuck in a sandwich of Jesus and Barry Humphries.
Oh, there's so much to be said.
No, I think there's a lot to be said about having entertainers.
Yeah.
Because you can just sit back and just take it all in.
Plus, I was quite pleased to make sure Ricky Gervais never made the cut.
You're not a fan?
Oh, no, yeah. I just thought I'm going to cut him out this time.
I think when I got...
I do like him, yeah.
I think when mine was... I'm sure I gave Ricky Gervais as an answer.
Yeah.
But second question is, what is your go-to karaoke song?
Well, I've had to change it because it was just getting too boring. So you'll understand when I say why. First off, it was American Pie.
No.
Oh, the full version, none of the half version. And then
the Tyson Fury version.
Once people started flinging glasses at me and stuff to get off the stage, I changed it to Down in a Tube Station with the Jam. If they've got it on the karaoke, obviously.
Yeah.
They've normally got Town Called Malice, so that's the fallback, I suppose.
I like the fact that you've got like things lined up. Oh, just in case they haven't got.
You have a full act, haven't you?
Are you a karaoke fan?
Used to be, not so much now. So much now. No, I used to enjoy it actually. But I do remember we were in Cancun in Mexico, and we went into this bar called Riley's. I think it's a Hurricane. They do this drink called a Hurricane. They're quite famous for it. New Orleans and Cancun's their 2 places. And they had this karaoke on, and so I thought, I'll do American Pie. I'm thinking, not even thinking, you're in America, Brian, that was stupid. And so I get up on the stage and they said, oh, Brian's come all the way from the UK and he's going to sing American Pie. And there was a guy just down from the stage. And the very last thing I heard before the music came on was, don't fuck it up. I was like, oh.
I would have said challenge accepted.
But they're all up singing and dancing, so yeah, it's good. Yeah.
No, how do you find America?
Oh, I love America.
Do you?
Yeah. It's changed a lot. I've done an awful lot of touring in America. This year, I just came back from Route 66. I did on motorbikes.
No way.
Yeah, with a guy from Saltash, surprised him for his birthday. Then we flew to Nashville for 5 days. Last year we went to see Coldplay in Philadelphia. I think that was 2 years ago.
Oh my!
So I've done a lot of America, Vegas, and driven down the West Coast in a Mustang. So we did the same thing down to Key West, actually. Yeah, since I've retired, obviously it's a thing of just pre-spending my pension. That's it. Don't tell my son.
You and your out. It's all gone.
It's all gone on good times and drink.
So what was Route 66 like?
I think it's got to be one of the best holidays I've ever had, if not the best.
Really?
So we did it. We flew into Chicago.
Yeah.
The guy that so Sean Weeks it was his 60th birthday. He knew he was going away for his 60th. And we were all saying, I wonder where you're going. But 19 months early, we'd arranged all this trip. So we were going to meet them in Chicago and then do 10, 11 days on Route 66 down to Albuquerque on Harley Davidson. So it's about 15 of us in the group. But there was only Sean and I knew each other, and the girls, obviously Kelly and Donna. So I kept messaging him, and I went out for a drink with him before he left and said, don't you forget to tell me where you're going. He says, I'll message you. And he was in Chicago when Don and I were in Chicago, and we were sort of following him round.
Oh, wow.
I had to find my phone on, so I knew where he was, so I didn't bump into him. And then he came into, he didn't know he was doing Route 66 or anything, so he came into the Route 66 place. It was in a hotel, the meeting place. And I could hear him outside, and Kelly's wife came in to get it on video. And she said, I could hear him outside going, oh, he says, I've got some friends who are going to be so jealous of this. And he came in and went, what are you doing, mate? Thankfully, he was pleased to see me.
Oh, God, can you imagine?
Yeah. So we had a great trip, really great trip.
Well,
we had Nashville, was fantastic. And
Nashville's my want to go to, like, bucket list place.
I enjoyed it more than Donna did, but it's just music in every bar. And then the last thing we booked on his last night was a drag bus.
Oh my God.
Which was all open top, and they've got all the sort of drag queen music playing. So we toured around Nashville and that, and everybody's, it's just a great laugh. Absolutely great laugh.
That sounds amazing. Yeah. And did you rent bikes over there?
Yeah, it was part of a package. They showed us, Eagle Rider, they're called, the tour group. And you rent the bike, and then they've got a guide, and then they bring all your luggage in a van behind you. And the hotels are all booked and everything. So a lot of, I think the whole thing's, could be wrong, 3,600 miles, and we did about 2,002, I think.
Oh, yeah. So you did like 2/3 of it, basically.
Yeah. We missed out Grand Canyon and Vegas and across that to Santa Monica where it finishes. But I'd like to have stayed on when I was on the bike, but once we got off, and then we were in Albuquerque, which is a nice place as well, and then we flew to Nashville then. But he thought we were going straight home after Albuquerque, because we hadn't even told him about going to Nashville.
No way.
So we had everything booked, ice hockey games and everything. That was great.
Right, I need to find better friends.
I need to find another pot of gold.
Need a new career again.
I've got another 2 trips booked next year, and all around the coast of Ireland is one of them with the girls. We've got 2 little touring groups. One's Piggin Touring, and I won't even go into why it's called that. And then the other one with the girls is Piggyback Touring.
Oh, right.
And so we're taking the girls' Piggyback Touring ones all around Ireland, so south coast right the way from pretty much Dublin round to Dublin again.
Oh, wow.
And down through Wales. It's about 10 or 12 days.
That's amazing.
I do the planning for it. And then we come back from that. And the month after, it's the lads are going to the Alps, 12 days. We just hope it goes better than last time, Dar, when I got knocked off my bike and helicoptered to hospital.
Well, this is one of the questions. This is one of the questions I wanted to ask, because I've seen the footage. And so we're kind of going a bit backwards here. We've started with the now.
I know.
But it's no problem at all. So you got knocked off.
Well, yeah, we had a 10-day tour right across the Pyrenees, zigzagging from France to Spain.
I just want to specify as well, knocked off his bike.
Yeah.
It's not that sort of podcast.
I mean, fortunately. And then the last day, well, we were due to go, strangely, this is why Jesus didn't make the cut as well, because we were going to stay in a monastery, an old monastery, on the last night. But it was just, I wasn't going very fast. So we came down off the Alps, down to the valley, and this car just pulled into the right. And normally they pull into the right just to let you pass, motorbikes pass. But all of a sudden, as I was going past, she just decided to turn left without indicating.
He didn't see you at all, though, did he?
No. It was a woman. She was hysterical. I wasn't too happy myself. But, the bike ended up one side of a signpost, and I ended up the other side. So I was very fortunate. But the bike's got one of these things, the BMW bike, it's got a thing, it's got an SOS button.
Right.
So if the bike crashes and you're away from it, even if it fell over and you were stood 10 yards away, they ring you on the actual system to make. Apparently, it's going to be European law in cars and everything.
Oh, wow.
And one of my mates said, no, we've got somebody off the bike here. And they were there in 10 minutes.
That's incredible, isn't it?
In fact, the first responders they must have been both like mid-20s girls. Yeah. And my mate said, I knew you were all right. And you looked up and you went, have I died?
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So, and then the helicopter landed, and I thought I could just get up and walk away. I didn't feel that bad. But when I was lying there, I suddenly thought, God, it must have been an after effect. My heart starts thinking, and they were running to get the zapper.
Oh, my
just in
God.
case. But Yeah, it was. I think it must have just been the adrenaline, really.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, I had some damage to my hip, and I had a hole in my leg that I didn't even see in the hospital because they cut my gene up one leg because I said I'd got pain and there was blood coming from my left knee, so it didn't even bother my right knee. And then so when I went to get changed, I thought, there's a hole in my bloody, and that took about 8 weeks. The people here at Saltash Portview surgery were great. They did.
Were they?
Oh, great, yeah. No waiting for appointments, straight in, get it all cleaned out, everything. So yeah, but no insurance at all. Don't mean no insurance. I mean no payout at all because the Spanish just ignore it. If you have even if you went to a court here and you won the case, for damages or whatever,
Yeah.
The Spanish just say, well, you're not in the EU, so it doesn't matter. He said, and then you have to then take another case to say, I just thought, I'm alive. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So what did you just leave the bike?
Yeah, it was cheaper to scrap the bike there for the insurance company than to bring it back.
Of course it was.
Luck would have it. But, what these BMW salesmen are like, they'll sell you anything. There's a reference there. They took me into having gap insurance.
No way.
And I was 3 weeks away from the gap insurance running out.
Oh.
So I got the full brand new value of the bike back.
You didn't tell the salesman that, did you?
Sorry, what?
The person who sold you that gap insurance, never tell that person
No.
because that is going to be their sales point
their sales
to get
pitch
them so
every
much
time,
commission. I wish I had something like that.
The thing is only 100 quid a year.
Yeah.
And that paid out, I'm going to say it paid out 8 grand.
It's no brainer really, isn't it?
It is. Because you always, the way he sold it to me in the first place is if you drive down the hill at Ocean and somebody swipes you, he said you're going to lose about 25% of the value of your bike overnight.
Yeah.
I thought for 3 years. And this is the thing, people buy, they'll spend 25 grand on a car, say. That's even if you can get a car for that.
Yeah.
But they won't take out the 300 quid gap insurance.
Yeah, and they'll even put a heated steering wheel in for £500,
Yeah.
And I know it's pushing, you're not pushing it because you're not allowed to push it, but you are trying to explain the benefits of insurance and those sorts of things. Because actually, they do have a benefit.
They gap, obviously, now.
But only...
They don't have to sell it to me anymore.
Only if you use it, though.
Yeah.
It's one of those, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it better to have it and use it?
Well, my gap insurance runs out the week after I come back from the Alps. I might just ride it off the ferry and into the ocean.
If there's any lawyers listening, please do not.
It's a disclaimer. That better not happen now, by the way.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the very beginning because so I didn't know that I was going to be asking you these questions until we started talking.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you actually could have been born into wealth. And
I could have, yes. This is the start of the story of my life.
Yeah, so go on.
So my granddad, who I never knew, he had the most successful plumbing business in Scotland, in Glasgow in the 1920s and 30s. And my auntie, who lived to 92, she was a character in herself, but she had a car at 18 in 1930.
My God.
So that's how wealthy they were. I've got pictures of them with the furs and everything on.
No way. So it was like proper...
But, they were proper posh jocks is what you would call them, really.
Who knew?
And they're in Glasgow. That probably ranks in the championship down there. So he died of, everybody said it was pneumonia. I'm pretty sure there was alcohol involved. I'm pretty sure there was. He had 10 brothers and sisters, not both of each, a mixture of brothers and sisters, 10 family. And someone made the decision to give it to the most useless one of those brothers to run.
Way.
And it was bankrupt within 3 or 4 years.
Oh my God.
Unbelievable. Yeah, so they all had to go and make their own way. And then my grandma, who was posh jock right till she died, really. She was the lady of the manor.
No way.
She remarried a commander in the Navy.
Okay.
Which is where the Navy connection started. And he was, I don't say ruthless, I mean strict, really strict, with every single person apart from his 3 grandchildren.
No.
Who used to sit with these pipes in her mouth on his knee pretending we were all sailors, and he'd be telling me all these dits and
Oh my
half of
God.
them anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, he was stationed in the Far East for 3 years.
What, in one go?
In one go, yeah. That's what they used to. I'm going back to 1950s, early 50s, but it was 3 years he went on deployment for.
God, can you imagine that? Like, can you imagine that now?
I know. Well, people will complain if they're away for a week.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would just stayed in and read books and poetry when he was over there. But
yeah, I wonder he had a year. He had a year out.
yeah, so he was the strict one of the family. Everybody. So he was massive. And Stoker, when you used to actually shovel coal.
Sorry, so there's a translation issue here. I thought you were saying he's a stalker, and I was like, oh.
So he was a Royal Navy stoker, and so he was when they were shoveling coal, but he worked his way up to commander. So he was a big influence, I suppose. And they lived in the West Coast, and we lived in Glasgow. But we were probably pretty posh jocks ourselves, to be honest. You know, we were never. My dad was an engineer in a company called Weirs that made all the stuff for the ships, all the propeller engines, all that sort of stuff.
Oh, so there's always been a little bit of.
But they never had loads of money. But they always a bit like, you know, when you're in your 20s, you're stretching yourself to buy a house, and so we had. We were quite an. I didn't realise this at the time that we were in an area called Clarkston in Glasgow. And you probably won't believe this, but in the only area of Clarkston was the only area of Glasgow, probably still is, I think, that doesn't have any pubs. It's a no drinking area.
No way.
I know. Well, hard to believe. That's why we got the hell out.
Yeah.
No, we were there for and that was where I was. So I was born in that house, a typical 1930s semi-detached. You know.
I thought you were suggesting that was when you were born then. I was like, you're looking very good for your age.
Our life was there. So I had two brothers. I was the youngest, and there was 2 years between each of us. And then this little town in 1971 we were all at school, and we were told there was a flood in the town. So we couldn't go down through town we didn't go through town anyway to get on, but they were telling everybody else not to go through town. And what had happened was there'd been a massive gas explosion, and there's a whole row of, I'm going to say 30 shops with a car park above it, and completely blew up, killed my mum.
Oh my God.
So she was working downstairs in this clothes shop, didn't even need to work, but she wanted to go and do it. And it's not until you get older and you go back to these places and you see your old neighbours and you find out what happened on the day and stuff, because you're protected all the time, aren't you, when you're younger?
I imagine it was quite the blur.
It's just, I mean, I always think of it through my own eyes, but then my brothers were older, and I was 9, so, you know, they were 11. And
do you remember how you felt during that time? Or
I remember it. That's one of the things I remember. I can tell you everything about the day. I remember going to somebody's house, and then they were trying to protect us from it. It came up on the news, and my brother and I just looked at each other because you could tell nobody was getting out of that. And so it's called the Forgotten Disaster because it was a bit of a whitewash. What happened was it was the Scottish Gas were putting gas into the shops, and there was a tray of, like a drain-away tray at the back, ran away all along the shops. And everybody had been complaining about the smell of gas and stuff. And years later, I can't remember what anniversary it was, 71, 2001, so that must have been 40-year anniversary, because it was all swept under. They rebuilt everything exactly the same.
No way.
Yeah, Scottish Gas were not held responsible at all.
So there's no inquest, no inquiry
nothing.
Anything like that?
It was a very quick inquiry, but it was all just brushed under the table. And it wasn't until, so one of the girls who worked with my mum, she was 16 at the time, she went to work for the council, and she worked her way up and started opening up this can of worms, because there's no memorial, no nothing. There's a tiny little plaque on the end of the building. So she fought to get this memorial day. So they had a church thing, and then they planted a tree and all that, and put all the mainly ladies' names up on the board. There were some people killed on a bus that was going past as well. But she told me that she was the last one to speak to my mum, basically. And she said, I can remember, obviously she remembers the day vividly herself. She said, the gas engineer came in. I shouted down to your mum. She said, can you smell gas down there, Pat? She was called Pat. She shouted up, yeah, it's terrible down here. And he said to the young lady who was upstairs, "Oh, there's not enough gas in here to kill a canary." And then he was blasted right across the road. He was killed. She survived. She was blasted through the window. She was thrown across the street, but she survived. My mum was downstairs, so the whole thing must have took 2 or 3 days because she went missing because we couldn't, my dad couldn't find her.
No.
So we're still under it all. So, yeah. So, I mean, God, I never thought one day I'd be talking about it because as we go on to this conversation, so if I take my 2 brothers, well, my middle brother was the one who got hit the worst by it, really, because I'm going to say a week later, you don't know when you're 9 what time it is. He became severely epileptic.
No.
And he could never talk about any of it. Never any of it at all. He would never talk about it. He was...
So no signs of it before?
No.
Just stress related?
Yeah. And he shut everything away and became very inward. So he had a real tough life. He had losing your mum at 9 and say you're lucky is a different thing to be.
Yeah.
He's the one who suffered. And my older brother as well, because he had more
understanding of what was going
and
on.
He had 4 more years with my mum than I had.
Yeah. So you don't always think about it like that, actually. Yeah, that's a really, really good point.
Because I thought, I didn't know when you said you were going to come right, I thought, I was talking to Don about it. I said, if I could just... Because one of the questions you were going to ask me before we got away was what would your superpower be?
Yeah.
And I thought, time traveler would be mine. Because...
I'm so sorry,
because you think, I've never had my family dinner since 1971.
That's not incredible in there.
When you put it into perspective like that, it's
so weird, yeah.
Or a Christmas, so...
Do you think try not to be too cliche, but do you think that's influenced your family life going forward as an adult or anything?
I think it did because, the best way I can describe it really is, so in 1971, there wasn't any, we'll get somebody to come in, look after your kids and all that. There's no support. It was basically carry on. So obviously my dad couldn't go to work and look after 3 boys at the same time. So he had to give up his work and buy a pub. So we had to move. So we moved, and obviously he didn't want to see the thing rebuilt and walk past it every day. And so we moved to one of the roughest areas of Ayrshire.
Really?
With one of the poshest accents of Scotland you could ever have.
So sorry to go back to it, but how was your dad during that?
During the actual time, it's hard for me to say because I was wrapped up in my own grief. All I could remember at the time thinking, I remember the day of my mum's funeral, and we weren't allowed to go to the funeral, so that was a difference in those days as well. But I just remember looking up at the sky because I believed in Jesus then. I don't know how, and I thought, I can't wait till I'm old and die.
Oh my Lord.
Because I thought everybody went to this place that everybody would be happy again. And that's the sort of memory I have. So my dad he said, all of a sudden I had some money, and he said, I didn't want it because your mum wasn't here. And he said, and I used to, later on in life, because I went to 7 different secondary schools, because he could not settle. We moved down to Cumbria from Scotland because we were not settling. It's such a bad place.
Yeah.
Constant fights in the pub that we were in all the time. And so we moved down to Cumbria. He had a job in one of the campsites there. It's a holiday place. Then he bought a pub there. So it's mainly that kept us all together. And that was a great place called Silloth in Cumbria. And that was a good part when we were all together. And my brother, Steve, he joined the Navy, so he left. David was my middle brother. He was always going to be at home.
Yeah.
So he went to work in a factory. Had a flipping accident at work, so he lost his job. Had one of his legs amputated. This is the guy. So, and then I joined the Navy. So yes. So if you are, what would I say? If you're Scottish and you're 11 and you move to England and you go to 7 different secondary schools, it's quite character building. It's a survival. I sort of try to use humor a bit to, nobody understands what you've been through. Nobody cares. It's your school. Nobody cares.
No, they don't know you, do they?
Yeah. Their own lives. You're in your teens, aren't you? Yeah. My dad, I used to hear him crying in bed. It's horrendous, absolutely horrendous. So we all bottled stuff up. And when you say that it influenced later on in life, yeah, well, it influenced it still does to this day.
Yeah.
If you think about it, I never, when I say I never wanted, nobody wants to get divorced. These things happen. But from the age of 9, there's me, my 2 brothers and Dad. We lived in a pub. We lived in loads of pubs, 3 pubs, I think. So big social pub, blokes, no women involved. Join the Navy, 9 years, 10 years in the Navy. Come out, meet somebody, get married. Hang on, who is this female person I've got to live with?
Yeah, that must.
So it's tough for the other person. I'm not saying it's
of course.
Everybody. So it does, and the occasional emotional flipping breakdown. Because you do bottle it all up, and you just think.
Do you think at some point, you're either going to spill out in little bits, or the lid's going to come off?
Well, loads of people told me to go and have counselling about it. Loads along the year, not early on, but as I got out the Navy and into proper adult. Yeah, when I grew up, came out the Navy. And I was honestly, I was always, oh God, just man up. The man up tablet, man out. Just man up.
Yeah.
What do you mean he's off with stress? But then it hit me like a train. Absolutely hit me like a train. Donna got me through it. Thank God, because it was closer than I'd like to admit at one time. But we're jumping forward a fair bit. So I went to all these secondary schools. Yeah. So and then I was always going to join the Navy.
So what were you like? Were you like scrappy?
No.
Just kept yourself to yourself.
Soft as. I'd like to be scrappy. I'd like to have been scrappy. I'd like to have survived a little bit better. Didn't really have a lot of friends, to be honest. You can't in that short space of time. You try and make friends, and then you get moved on. So didn't really find my way until I joined the Navy. So yes, I had plenty of scraps because you were the new guy.
Yeah. But it was more about survival than initiating.
Absolutely no time for bullies at all. I'd be scrappy now if somebody was bullying anybody. I can't be doing with it.
You often find that though.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you joined the Navy?
I was 4 days from my 17th birthday.
Wow.
And I looked about 10. I joined in February 1979. The interview was the funniest part because I obviously didn't do very well at school. I ended up with 2 O-levels. And my dad bollocked me for having 2 O-levels. And I thought, hang on a minute, you're the one who's moved me from every school to Kingdom Cup. But I never said anything to him.
Of course.
So I enjoyed doing that. I should dial back here, actually, because there's another funny story about our next door neighbour in the posh Clarkston of Glasgow. When I was at school, I remember somebody saying, and this is what we call primary school, is you have to write down what you want to be when you're older. And so I put down Navy and salesman. That was the 2 things I put down.
No way.
And they said to me, nobody wants to be a salesman. Why do you want to be a salesman? And the reason I wanted to be a salesman was because, everybody's got the person next door that's not a proper auntie, but is called auntie. Well, he was called Jack. So Jack next door had a new car every flipping year. New Austin, Cambridge, or something like that back in the 60s. And he worked for Triumph Brass. And I thought, what a great job that would be. So that was at 9. I was thinking, so that's why I wanted to be a salesman.
No way. Well, that's stubborn. The fact that you didn't change your mind.
We didn't have a lot of choice, to be fair, so a lot of it. Flipping and just survived it, really. So I joined the Navy, did 10 years, travelled all over the world, everywhere. Spent 1 year travelling the whole world, circumnavigating it.
No way.
Yeah, left, I say a year, it was 10 months, left in March or April. Came back in December, went across to Venezuela through the Panama Canal, up the east coast of America, Hawaii, Korea, Japan, Brunei, Singapore, down in Malaysia, down right round Australia, back up through the Suez and through the Med and back.
So is that why you've
9 months?
Is that why you've like carried on traveling?
I think so.
Because
so. Yeah.
I'm not very well. I've been plenty of places and I've done things, but it's taken me a very long time to do those things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was lucky in the Navy. I never joined the Navy for a career because I thought I was going to be a brass salesman. I wanted to go out after a year. No. I joined it because number one, I wanted to get away and I wanted to see the world because my granddad had told me all the stories about it. And, the thing is with the Navy, and it's probably even more so nowadays, you don't go as many places as you think you do.
Yeah.
It was a year of my life was down the Falklands. I wasn't down for the war, but soon after, and then spent 6 months then, came back, went back down again. So not great for relationships, didn't really have long-term relationships. I was in the Navy, didn't want them. But did 5 months in the West Indies, did that big tour, and all over Europe really. So yeah, I couldn't fault it. I was one of the lucky ones really.
So, I was going to say, that's like...
Well, I was coming back from the West Indies and they used to have a thing in this magazine called the Navy News and it was swap drafts. And I knew this ship was going to do in this 9-month trip. And I thought, I just want to get on any ship that's going on that trip. And there was a guy on there, the same rank as me, who wanted to swap. I wonder why he wants to swap. So anyways, wife was pregnant and she was due to give birth 2 months into the trip. So I don't think he wanted to swap. I think he had to swap.
Yeah, he was told to.
Yeah. So, and I swapped with him.
Oh.
So I came back from the West Indies in October and we sailed in March, I think. Oh, that's great. 24 years old.
Yeah. Well, what more can you...
Single 24-year-old.
Exactly.
Traveling the world.
Yeah.
So I did 10 years in the Navy. I got promoted once and I came out £400 overdrawn. So it wasn't a bad trip.
But a load of stories.
Oh, it's just great. And I look back, the trouble is, as other people say, you look back with tinted glasses. And there's plenty of bad times, but who cares about the bad times? They were far outweighed, but the places I've been far outweigh anything.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think a lot of people they forget that sometimes, that actually the positives do outweigh the negatives. Absolutely.
And only one person can change the bad days is yourself. Nobody else is going to come and do it for you.
So you're 24, and so you decided to...
No, I came out and I was 29 when I came.
Oh, sorry. So that was about halfway through.
So I was 24 doing the world trip. Then I stayed in for a bit longer. And then I came out 1989, I think. And obviously then I had to follow my original 9-year-old CV and get into sales. And of course, then you find out that you've got no sales experience. You think, I can talk to people, I'll be all right. And the hardest part of getting into sales is getting into sales. So I got this job in insurance and I hated every minute of it. I was only there for about 7 months, direct selling insurance. There's a load of money to be made, but I couldn't make it because I didn't have a clue what I was doing really. And one day I thought, I quite like cars. And so I walked into the Nissan garage, which was used to be down by where way to Plymstock on the left-hand side of CDS used to be as well. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, this Nissan dealer. I walked in and I said, have you got any jobs? And he said, we are actually looking for a sales guy. So he said, we'll give you a 1-month test.
Nice.
So I started there and luckily enough, I sold a car on the first day. I didn't sell a car. Somebody came in and asked for a car. They said, I want that one. But that was a sale for me.
It counts.
So yeah, I stayed there and then there must have been a recession, something like that. Anyway, they were laying people off and I got made redundant. And then I saw an advert in the paper for selling cars in Germany to the American services.
No way.
Yeah. And I was looking at Nissan. They were paying £50 a new car at the time. This was £350 a car. So that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
All the experience, servicemen and all that. Yeah, and moved to Nuremberg, stayed there until the first Gulf War, I think. But the money was fantastic. But you had to make sure you talked to people. Would just let people walk past. But I used to speak to everybody. So did make some money there for the first time in my life. But then the Gulf War happened. So all the Americans shipped out to go to Kuwait, was it? And we came back home, back to the UK and lived in Saltash with my ex-wife. Couldn't get a job because there was hardly any jobs here.
How did you end up in Saltash then?
Met my first wife about 3 weeks after coming out of the Navy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. and she was from Saltash.
No way.
Yeah. So that's how I ended up in Saltash.
Because I was thinking, you've come a long way.
I know. Oh, tell me about it. Tell me about it. When I used to take the kids up home to see my dad and that, he was still in Cumbria. So yeah, I did have an opportunity while I was in the Navy to switch to the Australian Navy, but my dad wasn't very well then. And I thought, well, I better just stay around. And he recovered then, but then he was never quite the same. And then he tragically died of cancer at 7, but it was too late. I was going to go to Australia then. I'd already met my first wife.
Yeah.
So what was I doing? So I was doing so I was out in Germany, came back from Germany, struggled to get a job, 6 months. I would say my first wife supported me because we were running out of money quickly.
Yeah.
And then I saw a job for Avon Tyres. I thought, Avon Tyres, never had them. And so I went for the interview for that, and fortunate enough to get that job. And that's the job that changed my life the most, really.
So did you just like push catalogues on somebody's...
Yeah, that's what everybody says. Everybody says that. They'll have you for brand image on that one. It's Darrow with a Y, not an R. Yeah. So strangely enough, the cosmetics firm was probably the best advertisement for the name of the tyre firm.
Oh, I bet it was actually, yeah.
They were part of a company called Avon Rubber, and they made boats as well, and Wellington boots and everything.
Oh, right.
So I went there. The factory was in Melksham in Wiltshire. I went there I don't remember what year it was, but this is how big the area was back in those days. I was Devon and Cornwall was my area.
Oh, right.
So it was great. Just going around to tyre dealers selling our brand of tyres. And we didn't advertise anywhere. So it was more about bribing people, really. And, because we didn't advertise, and nobody knew how much they were. So does a profit brand, because everybody knew the name Avon, as you just said there.
Yeah.
But they didn't quite place it with tyres. So people could sell it quite high and make some good money on it.
That's really good.
So you went around, and we used to do truck tyres and stuff like that. And then I was promoted within 2 years on that. I was promoted to divisional manager. And then, so I moved, I'll get flipping gypsy on it. moved to Wiltshire so I had a team of people covering the southwest then.
Mm-hmm.
And it grew from there. We sort of grew the business from, I think when we started, we were doing as a company because we were then bought out by a company called Cooper Tires of America. And if they hadn't bought us out, we'd have gone bust without doubt.
Oh, really?
Because the Chinese were coming in, budget brands were coming in. It was really starting to affect the market. 55%, probably more now, I bet, of the market's budget tyres in the UK.
Yeah, I suppose when you look at times with cost of living and all those sorts of things, and the second recession.
And fleet's a big part of it as well.
Really?
So that's a big part. Yeah, if you can get onto fleet, you do quite well. Then I was made UK manager.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you about that. Because when because I'm really good at research, so I Googled you. And that's what, there was...
At least I'm on there.
Yes.
I'm pleased to hear I'm on there.
On the 15th page, I managed to find an article.
Bloke with 2 O-levels takes on the UK.
Yeah, it just... I can't remember what it said, but that was the bit that came up about you being brought on as the UK sales manager.
I was promoted to UK sales manager, and I had that job that was the best job I've had ever. The money was great, the commission was great, traveling the UK, and then I was dealing with the big customers. We had a customer in Gloucester. I think he's got a place in Plymouth, Richmond, Malvern Tyres. He was from Scotland, and he was from the rough part of Scotland, and he'd started his own tyre place. By the time he finished, he's dead now. We had 50 odd depots.
Oh, wow!
And they sold 130,000 tyres a year or something. Just phenomenal. And you're dealing with these people. Of course, the great thing for me is I'm not selling, Viagra to flipping doctors, for example. I'm talking to the guys who were at the back of the class with me. That's who I was talking to. There's some very smart guys there. I met the owner of Quick Fit and all that. So you had to be a bit of a chameleon, obviously, but the majority of it was done through entertaining, and we had no limit on our company credit cards because we didn't advertise.
Yeah, of
That
course.
was our advertising was direct by taking customers out for drinks, and you try that nowadays.
Honestly, the amount of courses that I have to do with bribery and
We missed them.
honestly, yeah. Well, no, but it was a different time. Then the
it's
old
different.
brown envelopes.
We used to go. I remember my garage being full of Christmas gifts, watches and stuff to give to customers. Big cut jackets and.
I feel like I was born at the wrong time. I'd have loved a bit. I loved a bit of the old wheeling dealing.
We used to take them golfing every year away to Spain and stuff, and it's just the whole thing was the down. It's out. I mean, once again, I'm looking back with tinted glasses on.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you about presenting to 200 people or doing a profit and loss account to the board on a flipping Friday afternoon.
No, of course.
Yeah.
But who wants to listen to that?
As I said before, the more good days you have than bad days. That's all it comes down to is a balance. And so
you didn't find it stressful?
I did find it. Well, that particular job I had in my pocket, really, because I knew every customer in the UK. Because a lot of people in my position, in our competitors, never went to see customers. They would do it all from an office and talk through the sales guy. But I used to go out and meet up because I liked meeting people. So, and I liked going out with people. But it was long, leaving Saltash on a Monday and coming back on a Friday and doing all your prep for the following week before you go on the Monday.
Yeah.
I have a little thing now because I've retired called Country File time. Country File, because Country File used to come on and think, right, I'm going to go and do my presentations for this week.
Right.
And I just take the moment and sit back and think, I don't have to do anything. So it's my Country File
That's
moment.
cool. I like that.
You have to, don't you? You have to. If you don't appreciate you're not doing something,
Yeah.
you're just constantly thinking, what am I going to do? So, so I got, it was stressful. Sorry, that job I had pretty much sorted, really. And there were stressful times in it. Of course. As I say, board meetings, sometimes we're losing money, sometimes we're, targets every month, everything was target.
Yeah.
But really, I was promoted then to sit about 3 years before I finished to sales director for Northern Europe. And I was right out of my comfort zone then, because of course I'm not that clever a person to analyze. So that's more about analyzing and not seeing customers and, making decisions at a distance. It wasn't my forte at all.
Yeah.
But I thought at the time, the money they offered me was so good that I couldn't turn it down. I thought if I turn this, I thought to myself I was going to retire at 60. So, but then the money they offered me, I thought, well, I could knock 2 years off of working here. But of course, it's not all about money, is it?
No, I understand.
So every day then became what's going to happen today that I'm not going to be able to handle? Or what, I probably could have handled it, but I was already in that
mindset.
Even, when you asked me before about how's that an effect in your life? I was probably even thinking then, I'm not good enough for this job because I didn't have all the A levels and the degrees and the stuff that all the people normally have for that direction.
Because that was something I was going to say was, you've got to be some sort of clever to be able to get to the position you're in. So as much as
you call the episode the clever one, that would be
that's it. You heard it, yeah. But
the survivor,
regardless of your own view, there is no way that somebody can get that, have this good a career and not be some sort of clever. I'm not saying you may have been
Elon Musk done it. No, yes, sorry, I was probably doing myself a bit of a disservice, but yeah, probably more so I was outside my comfort zone, really.
And that does get you.
I think I'm a person that quite likes to, well, not quite, I do like to get on with people. That bullying time, all those schools, it's conflict avoidance, isn't it? So, and then all those customers as a UK manager, conflict avoidance, being in between what the company wants and what they want, all that. But when you're the person all of a sudden who, hang on, well, you're in that position now. You make the decision.
Yeah.
That's what your customers are saying. You're the man to make the decision. And you're so used to trying to maybe please them as a salesperson, which some guys don't. Some guys just treat them like at a distance, which is probably the best way. But I knew the wives, I knew the birthdays, I knew the kids, I knew everything about them.
Yeah.
So probably went too native. It's probably a way of, I'd been there for 30 years. So I was that sort of person that they knew, and I was taking them out. I'd spent so many social hours with these guys. They were like, when I say they're like friends, I'm putting that in inverted commas because I never saw them as friends and they would never see me as a friend. And that's in testament to the fact I've been retired 4 years now and only one customer's ever rang me up.
No.
So whenever you think you're important in a company and the company will not carry on without you, you are absolutely fooling yourself. The first, if you die tomorrow, touch wood, you don't.
Yeah,
if anybody dies tomorrow, the first thing that company's going to think of, they might say out loud, is how are we going to replace him?
Yeah,
but that's the company's got to survive. It's nothing to do with
it's a business. Their whole entity is to make profit.
My sales guys used to ring me up and say, "Oh, yeah, can I have a reduction in target this month because such and such is ill or he's not buying?" I was saying, "Did you not get your paycheck this month?" Because you have to remind yourself that actually you're an employee. You're working for somebody else who's taking the risk to start a company.
Yeah,
you're not the person who's taking the risk at all. They are the people that do it. And I just think, well, they're paying me. As long as they're paying me what I think I'm worth, and a lot of people aren't, don't get me wrong, I'm very fortunate. I was very fortunate in the end of what I was on, but at the beginning I wasn't. I was on very low wage at the beginning. But
did you think I'm just trying to get to what the answer is. Was it just hard work?
I think all the grounding, the bit I've missed out. My dad died. My brother died when he was 50. So I was 46. He had brain tumor.
Right.
My other brother's just recently died. He choked to death. So he was, Christ, maybe you should call it Mr. Lucky. I don't know. But he ended up in a home because his wife was his carer. And then she developed dementia. So she couldn't look after him. And there was because he's in Cumbria, so there's nobody, they don't do care at home in Cumbria. They do it during the day, but not. And he couldn't be left on his own. So he ended up in a home. So I became his power of attorney. So, but I really got to know him again he was in there for 2 years before he sadly, I don't know, the inquest is in January, but I think that might have been something with all the meds he was on. It might have closed up his pipe. And he always had a cough and so he had a real bad time. So I think all these things, and I keep going back to losing people, I suppose, have had such a influence on my life. So I probably overlook on the positive because people always say live for today. I live for tomorrow because one day there won't be a tomorrow. So there's no point in live for tomorrow.
Yeah.
So just to skip back to that director of Northern Europe. So that was covering the whole of the UK, Ireland, all the Benelux countries, Sweden, Norway, all up there. So I was a lot of travel from Saltash.
Yeah, it's so weird.
Because we're not blessed with flying from Newquay to Bergen or whatever. So, and this is what...
Even Exeter is no good.
No, because I moved back to Exeter because my first wife never settled in Wiltshire. So I moved back to Exeter and I loved Exeter. Exeter was the first place I'd ever lived since Clarkston, Glasgow, where I felt it was home. First place ever.
No way.
But she couldn't settle there. She was a Saltash girl, so she wanted to come back to Saltash. And she, in fairness to her, she wanted to do a midwifery course. And so we needed her mum to look after the kids because her parents lived down here. So, and I sort of, suppose I threw the toys out the pram and it never really worked. Since when we moved back here, it never really worked.
Right.
And it started off a mutual thing, but it never ends up mutual when you agree to separate.
Yeah.
But God, I've gone completely off of that.
It's absolutely fine.
So all these things. So that job was traveling away sometimes Sunday night to get to the airport, early flights, meeting up with customers. They want to go out for a meal at night time. I had something like 5 flights in one day on these tiny little planes around Sweden and Norway. And I thought, this is really starting to get me down.
See, this is the bit that a lot of people don't see about success is they just see the end product.
Yeah.
And the money
Yeah.
and, the lovely home and all that stuff. But what they don't see
is the sacrifice.
Is the sacrifice that's been made to get there.
Many a person says to me, "Oh, you're so lucky you are." I said, "I didn't say I'm lucky. I said I've been fortunate in how things have ended up. That's purely down to how much I put into my pension. I owed a load of money, as much as I could, into my pension in the last few years. So on that trip that I was on, so I came back and I landed into Heathrow and I had to be up in Gloucester or something the next morning. So I drove from Heathrow to Gloucester. And I was in this hotel room and I thought, I can't do this anymore. I thought, I just can't. And this was a particularly difficult meeting I was heading for. And I had I've never been to counselling up until this thing. I've everything thinking like, oh, everybody's gone. And trouble is you don't think of what kids and stuff like. I've got a friend whose 3 cousins have committed suicide.
Wow.
One of them just 2 weeks ago. And I suppose, and they've all had families, successful business, just that you don't see what you have. And as I said before, I was always, because people have been off with stress at work and I was like, oh man, I've just, get back to work, get on with it.
I bet the Navy's attitude wasn't particularly good either, was it?
I don't think there's such a thing as stress. You say I went to the Navy person and said I've got stressed. You try flipping steering the ship, firing weapons off it. So I was in Gloucester. I had this really bad meeting with this guy that I was talking about before. And I was driving home and I thought, I could just drive into that other car and this would all be over.
Oh my God.
Not even thinking of the person I might bloody hit. That's where my mind was, I do not know. So I got home and I was sat in the front room there and Donna comes in and I said to Donna, I can't do this anymore. I just burst into tears. I was like, that's not a thing that's wrong. I was just completely down. And she said, oh, you're going to have to go to the doctors tomorrow. I said, I can't, I've got to go to, I can't remember where I was supposed to be going. All this stuff to sort out, and I just couldn't get up. It's just absolutely pressure on me. And so I went to the doctor and he says, oh, you've got stress. He said, you need to take at least 2 months off. And I was 58 then, 57. Yeah. And of course I'm then thinking work's going to think I'm not to this job and I'm not going to get my job back. And, this isn't going to end well. Oh, we've got mortgage and all this other stuff going on. And because the more you earn, the bigger mortgage you get and blah, blah, blah.
Of course.
Anyway, next morning, the day I rang them up and said, I'd just been signed up for stress so that nobody was allowed to contact me then. And then they had an interview with me. And they said, oh yeah, because they said quite a few people try it out apparently with stress, but they could tell the signs, HR apparently, the doctor's in there. And, I thought I'd be back in a month, but I wasn't ready to go back in a month. And took ages without Donna. I don't know how I would have done because she had to pick up all the pieces around me and I couldn't get off the seat. I couldn't do anything, couldn't function. And then from that, the company said, we'll pay for you to have counselling. So somebody said down the doctors about some, they put me in touch with some lady over in Plymouth. And so my first day at counselling was, she said to me, right, Brian, what do you think of counselling? I said, old flipping money for nothing, innit? She said, oh, and why do you think that? I said, well, I might as well be down the pub talking to my mates, aren't I? She said, yeah, but you're not, are you? And I thought, she got everything out of me. From my mum died first time, and this is a lot. I couldn't talk like this.
You just spilled the beans.
I told her everything. The mum dying, the whole story that we've just been through, and we'd lost a baby late on as well. So there was a baby between the 2 children we've got that we lost. So and she says, I'm not surprised you're here. So, but it was all about talking. That's what it was all about. And that's why I'm never scared to talk about mental health now, because I never thought I just thought I was bulletproof, and nobody's bulletproof. And the people who are not bulletproof are the people you think are just cruising through life.
But they're actually solid.
Yeah.
Like they're comfortable in themselves, and
you just think,
and once you've been through something like that, you look at people differently, don't you?
Oh, definitely.
So those people that are like laid back, but they talk and they're just, maybe more towards, what we would class as like them have a more of a feminine side or a sensitive side. Actually, they're healthier than all of us put together.
Exactly. Exactly. The guys who just go and work in a factory from, for 8 hours, probably got don't have to think about work when they leave. And just in sales, as you know, you're always thinking about work.
Yeah.
You're on holiday. The day before you come back, you start checking your emails. Worst thing you could ever do. And you're back into work zone again. But it's and I would say to anybody, it's just not worth it for work. It's not worth it. Health is by far the best thing, which is easy for me to say now. But when you're in the middle, I'm 62 now, but when you're in your 40s and stuff, and you've still got all that, you've got your family, some of them are going to university or whatever, you think, I've got to make sure just make sure I've got enough money. How much money do you need?
Yeah.
That's the question. I was very, very fortunate. I went back to work and I could tell they didn't want me in that position. I could tell. And the guy who took over my job, because they were trying to get me. So this is how they looked after me. Really. I went back to work and they said, we would like you to look after the whole of Europe fleet market. I was like, that's a nice gradual break back.
Phased return to work.
Phased return. Which country do you want to invade first? He said, you could do loads of it from home. I was like, you never can't do a job like that from home. And so the guy that took over my job when I retired, I was good friends with. And he said, Brian, I don't want this to come from me as public knowledge, but I've already signed a bit of paper to take your job. So this was music to my ears.
Did you not feel like relief?
I was thinking, right, because I knew I had a way out.
Yeah.
The thing is, Darryl, it all fell into place because we had a company pension scheme that was losing $7 million a year, or needed to have $7 million pumped into it every year. So they gave us a settlement on our company pension. And Don and I were, I wonder what the figure will be. And I said, if it's X, I might think about retiring. And if it's this, I'm definitely going to retire, or part-time or something. Anyway, it came back and it was like 4 times what I thought it was.
Oh, wow.
That's because, of course, company pensions are costing them you could live to 100 and you could be drawing money out of that and at the level I was at, a director's pension. So that worked out really well. Him telling me about the job that he'd been offered, I contacted the union and they said, well, we can get you a year's pay. He said, because you cannot offer somebody a job when they're off with depression. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
And
so you had him hanging by the testes, really?
Yeah, really. Anyway, I didn't really want to, I'd like to come. I'd been there that many years, but they paid me off in the end, so which was great. And they made me work. I wanted to finish in the January, but I had to give 3 months notice. So, which was ridiculous for them because, what was I going to do in that 3 months?
Yeah.
But it worked out once again perfectly for me. So that was the January, February, March of the COVID year. So I retired 58 the week before the first lockdown.
No way.
So I didn't have any retirement due, but I wouldn't bother about that. I'd had 3 months of retirement due at the company's expense. Yeah. And so my pension transferred out just after COVID started, and all the shares were on the floor, weren't they? So, like EasyJet share had gone from 10 quid to 50p.
Yeah.
So my pension then went in and bought all these cheap shares.
No way.
So just that. So all my luck with life has been at the very end in the last 4 years, really.
No, but
and that's why we do a lot of traveling, make sure,
you're making the most of it.
Yeah. I'm not going to be spending what I'm spending on holidays now when I'm 80 because I won't want to do it.
Yeah.
So I'd rather
you might not be able to.
Yeah,
you don't know,
might not be here. I've been very lucky that way. So the last 4 years have been, apart from losing my brother, obviously. But
yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
So what have you got going forward then?
Holidays, motorbikes, and and weight training,
Oh,
basically.
my God.
I don't really, and Donna would say herself, she says, you'd go to the opening of an envelope, you would, because I don't want to miss anything.
Yeah. But like what you've explained and what we've spoken about, there are some really shit days.
Yeah, there is. And, there's still days that I struggle with my mental health. There's still days.
Do you check in with anybody every now and again, or just...
No, I speak to Donna about
Yeah.
it. She's a good listener.
You
and
just...
stuff like that. Yeah, we tend to talk about it between ourselves.
Yeah, so you just check it, just like mentally check it.
There was a time when I was going to go back to see the counts, and I thought, no, I'll just try and get through this. But on all that, I mean, we haven't been making a joke about it, but I've laughed at myself about it. But any mental health, I just ring people up. Like the guy who's lost 3 cousins, I wasn't sat here thinking I better ring him and see what he's like. I just rang him.
Yeah.
He said, you're the only person to ring me, because I thought he's not going to be in a good position. So
it is. It's sad.
I'd hate not to make that phone call to somebody. So if MD is, there are 2 people that are listening to this, me gibbering on, and you do think that somebody is suffering, just ring him and chat to them. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, I always think, even if it was just once a week, call somebody or message somebody you hadn't spoken to in ages who you really got on with.
Yeah, just say you're doing all right.
That's one of the great things about this podcast is I've caught up with so many people from school that really, without this, it could have been 20 more years before us catching up, and people have messaged me that I haven't spoken to in 20 years. Well, Brian, thank you so much for this. I cannot thank you enough, A, for opening up and being part of just like 2 blokes chatting about mental health, because I really do think that's important, but also just sharing your incredible twisty-turny story, and wish you nothing but the best for the future. And so guys, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. Please like, share, keep talking about it. For now, cheers.